Hi, everyone. It is Cheryl Hickerson at Females in Finance. And today I have my friend Daleele Alison of RooksDM with us. And Daleele, you're in Carolinas now. You were in
Virginia.
Chicago. Oh, you're in Virginia now. Okay. You were
Yeah,
in Chicago though for a while, then you moved, correct?
correct. Yeah, I
All
was in
right.
Chicago for the last 6.5 years. I just got to Virginia in May of last year.
Gotcha. You just couldn't take enough of the cold, so you moved someplace else that was just going to get a little bit. What is your temperature today? I'm curious.
35 degree and there's snow on the ground. So
You're doing better than us. We're -1 and we have snow on the ground as well. And I'm in St. Louis. So we're going to send it all to you, though. I'm blowing it to go over
okay.
that way. For those of you who are new to Financial Rockstars podcast, it is your backstage pass to meeting the professionals in financial services. And today I am excited that Daleele is here because we're going to talk about some fun things and we're going to talk about some other topics that may not have always be considered as fun, like compliance and but he makes it fun, I assure you with that. Would you tell everybody your origin, like why you're in financial services and financial technology?
Yep. So I'll give you a little bit of background. So we're Rooks DM. Generally, we do technology consulting implementation. We specifically work in the financial services space for a few different reasons. First and foremost, we have an interest in it. So the work that the financial services space does, specifically financial advisors, we're very interested in providing financial literacy, financial health, financial planning, and all of those good services is of personal interest to me and my co-founder to start off with. And then secondly, I always say it was kind of by chance because broadly we do work across professional services. But I want to say about 3-ish or so years ago, 3 or 4 years ago now, we ended up getting one client in the financial services space, saw the challenges that the advisory firm faced and decided that, hey, these are some great challenges that our team could help support and make a huge impact. So it was a nice mutual alignment between the interest that we have and the services and solutions that we can provide were kind of same symbiotic, which worked out really well. So
Yeah.
here we are years later, niching down and specifically and targeting the financial services space.
Could you tell everybody about the name of your company too? Because I found this really fascinating.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. So Rooks DM. So I'm first generation American. My parents are immigrants from Ethiopia, and so the name, the word Rooks me is pronounced Rook, and it means to go far. And so when we initially founded the business, our whole mantra is we wanted to help small businesses be able to go further than they are today, and we still do that across the team. So that's where the name comes from.
I love that. I love when names are special like that because it's kind of like it ties you into how you've tied it in culturally. I'm a little curious. So, how do you work with some of the professionals today? What does that look like? Like, what would if we did a discovery call, and how would you go about starting a relationship?
Yeah, so we do everything from consulting to implementation. I always say
Okay.
both because some firms just focus on the consulting part and some just focus on the implementation. We do both. So in terms of getting started with us, it's usually figuring out what the need is. And it's usually the need is around, hey, we're looking to get more efficient across our firm today, and we want to leverage technology to help drive those efficiencies. I always joke to say technology is a full-time job, so you can't do technology and service your clients and do a million other things as it relates to running a business. So the first line of business typically when we talk to a firm is what are the challenges, what are the needs, what are you struggling with today, documenting those, getting on the same page, and then figuring out what makes the most sense with getting started. So it might be a general consulting engagement, and that's usually looking at, to your point, an assessment. So we'll come and look at the lay of the land. I always say it's more strategic. So it's the whole measure twice, cut once, where we're kind of taking a look at the bigger picture. And then based off the bigger picture, we're providing recommendations on changes to make that
Mhm.
will help set you up both short term and long term for driving those efficiencies. Or the alternative is, hey, we have an immediate need and we're spending way too much time being able to generate these reports. We're copy and pasting data from one system to another, and we know we're spending several hours a week doing this and we want a solution just focused on that. That could be the alternative as well too. So it's a little bit, it's either general where we're providing the assessment or more specific to a current pain point that they're looking to solve immediately where we get brought in to help them solve that.
Yeah, I had a conversation recently with Chuck Fayed from Go RA, and he does his live stream, and we were talking. He's going to be on Financial Rockstars as well in a few weeks, and one of the things we were talking about in specifically the world of RIA is too much tech not enough tech, not the right the tech talk. And I will tell you at Females in Finance, we have found that there are new RAs, like people ran away from the broker dealer. I always joke about, and they want to become their own RA. But the chief, well, they're already complaining about compliance, but then the technology, they become the CTO as well, a lot of times too. And what I have seen happen, and you can tell me if I'm right or I'm wrong, but they get themselves involved in so much technology, they don't use it, they don't know how to use it, they don't see where the profitability, the opportunity cost lies in it. And so then they're in these contracts, and they're long, they're arduous, they're expensive, and it really puts a hamper on the beginning of the RIA. So because of that, one of the things I was talking about was we really need people such as yourself, Daleele. Like, that needs to be the first phone call, not go buy the tech, but it really does need to be with a technology person such as yourself that says, hey, this is the right tech or the wrong tech. Do you feel that that's, I mean, obviously that sounds like, yeah, of course you should call me, but no, you're one of the people that I trust in this space that you would say, no, you shouldn't. What are your thoughts around that? Having too much tech at the beginning.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good question. So I want to answer this thoughtfully. So my initial reaction is when you're getting started, you don't know what you don't know. So there might be other
Yeah.
technologies. So especially coming from a big firm that has proprietary software or stuff that's built in house, differs compared to the third party solutions you can buy off of the open market, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think when you first get started, it might make sense. Like you will incur some of that technology debt because you don't know what you don't know, and you're trying to figure out what the best pieces of technologies
Yeah.
are for your firm and how it aligns with your needs. But as you grow, and that kind of ties into the types of clients that we work with. Generally, we work with clients that do have the tech debt and they are aware of it, of, hey, we've implemented all these pieces of technologies. There's overlap in terms of the technologies that we have from a features and functionality standpoint. Simplest example is document repository. We're working with a few different firms right now to help standardize not even the technology that they're using, but more
Yeah.
along the lines of how do you store documents? What's the folder structure, naming convention? Where should things get stored? Because that does have an impact in terms of efficiency of people being able to find the documents that they need. And then also, like, from a compliance or access standpoint, only ensuring that the people who need access to those documents have access to it. So I think it's twofold in the sense of probably in the beginning, there will be some tech debt because you're still trying to figure out what it is within your firm on how you want to operate and the best supporting technologies that will help you be efficient. But as you evolve and kind of learn and get more iterations under your belt, then that's where you kind of take a step back and say, hey, I do have all this technology that I want to clean up and make more efficient. Would probably be my answer there.
Yeah. And I do agree with that. So basically, what I just heard is for every fintech company watching this right now, Daleele needs to be your best friend, your new best friend. Uh, and no, in all seriousness, I do think that you're very agnostic of the tech that's out there, and which I like about you because you can look at something and be like, hey, this is going to work for you. Hey, it's not. And it is something I'm concerned about because we're very appealing to RIAs. We have a lot of them in our group. So knowing someone like you exists and you can help with that, I think it's great. One thing I do want to talk to you about though is tech. There's a lot of men in tech. Oh, it's just that I'm just addressing the 800-pound. I think that how do you navigate allyship today in that space? Like, what does that look like for you?
How do I navigate what? Sorry, I missed that
The
last part.
allyship part of, like, how, for example, as you're looking and building a company, and I do know several people, members of your firm, are you very intentional about your DEI needs? Are you very intentional about the people that you're hiring? And then when you look at fintech as a whole,
Hmm.
one of the things we're trying to do is how do we partner with fintech companies better, or organizations as a whole, to make certain that we're addressing DEI needs out there too, from hiring women, but also hiring, anyone who's who considers himself in a DEI candidacy space. What does allyship like that and that look like for you?
Yeah, so we're very mindful of that. I mean, we're a minority-owned company as well, too. So that's one of our core values or core initiatives is ensuring that we're hiring for diversity and partnering with people. that are part of the diversity team. I think it just takes being intentional with if there's a job, right? If there's a project that's coming up and we need an additional resource on the project, how do we be mindful to say, hey, we have these partners. One, are these partners a good fit? If yes, then asking the question, is there an opportunity for us to hire more diverse people that could be part of this engagement? And even for us hiring, as we continue to grow, that's in our hiring goals. So we're looking to hire more minorities within the technology space because there's not a lot of coders, if you will, or people that do the development work in our industry that are female. So that's a big one for us as well too.
Yeah. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit and asking this question, so I apologize, but what have you gained from being in an organization like Females in Finance or any other one, but specifically ours? But I would love to hear if there's, how does working with us work for you as a business owner of a tech, in tech consulting?
Yeah, for me, it's that whole point of how do we contribute to diversity? And so, like, whenever I meet someone that is interested in getting involved in the financial services space or looking to grow in their career or looking to get an opportunity, I immediately think of your group. And I'm usually like advocating of, hey, you should join this awesome organization because they're doing amazing things to help minorities and females be able to get ahead in the industry. So that's the first thing there. And then twofold in the sense of if there's any ever like intros that I can provide or things that I can contribute, whether it's content, partnership, whatever it may be, I'm more than happy to do that as well too. And I know we've had several different conversations. You've provided some tremendous intros and hopefully I've done the same over the years that we've known each other, but just making sure that it's a partnership that goes both ways and that we're contributing as much as we're consuming as well too.
Yeah. And I do appreciate that you have made some phenomenal introductions for us. And I appreciate that too. I think one thing I'm also curious about is talking about FinTech, since you are the consultant. What's some of the trends that you're seeing out there? What are you seeing some of the for 2024 of like, oh, you should do this or you shouldn't do that? I always love asking about trending thoughts when it comes to tech.
I mean, the big one's AI.
I didn't want to say the obvious in the room, but I didn't want to taint that question, but it was one of the questions I had. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so leveraging AI is a big, I mean, we've been doing it for years. Like one of the solutions that we had developed, it's in the market, but it's the ability to be able to parse, you're able to train the AI model to parse certain data points out of a document, put those data points into another system. So for example, if you're an advisory firm that's doing tax prep and there's like W-2s or 1099s or bank statements or whatever they may be that you need to be able to process, instead of you having to do that manually, you can just send the document to the AI solution. It will parse the data out and put it into the appropriate location that you want. So that's a big one in terms of time saving. Obviously, chatbots are huge. So we're working on some stuff right now to be able to leverage chats internally. So if you are a firm and you want to know, hey, if I show me some other clients that have these types of data points and show me what I've proposed to them, then being able to parse that data internally within your organization and get a response through the AI is something that we're looking at as well too. And then another one that we're working on right now specifically for advisory firms is a central hub for clients. So obviously, as you know, if you're a client of a financial advisory firm, there's so many different systems that you have to log into. And so that's a challenge in terms of the client being able to access the information they need or either kind of defaulting to email communication with the advisory going back and forth. Sometimes that can be a bottleneck. So figuring out a way right now, we're in the process of building a one-stop shop portal where it will be able to integrate with multiple different financial advisory firm softwares for the client. So when the client logs in, they have the vault, they have the risk assessment, they have the latest version of the plan, and then they have the ability to share documents with the advisors as well too. So that's something that we are currently building. And it is a challenge in the sense of we can't do any and everything. So right now we're building an MVP to say, hey, here's a suite of products that are going to integrate with this portal, and then we'll build off of that moving forward.
Yeah. So I knew, we were going to talk about compliance today too, because it is something. So he and I have this back and forth friends about I'm Zoom and he's Teams.
Yes.
I know. Thank you for stepping down to lowly Zoom today, even though I know I do understand that why Teams is used for a lot of financial advisor communication, though, from a compliance standpoint. Speaking of compliance, Linda's already jumped into how are you helping your clients to not go astray with AI from a compliance standpoint? Any thoughts on that one? So this has been something that's been talked about within the FinTech groups.
Yeah, so for us right now, we always are very mindful and we notify like clients not to share like any super sensitive data with the AI as it relates to like client stuff. So that's the big one. A lot of the solutions that we build are more for operational efficiency as well too. So that's a big one. And then our delivery team does a pretty good job with ensuring the people that need access to the systems are the only people that are able to access it is another one.
Yeah. Is that a big thing in the reg tech world right now too that you're working with, that you're seeing whether it's the Smarshes or the Smart A, all of them, where they're either bringing the download of information in, but you've got this AI component now that people want to use. I'm going to be honest with you. I've tested out a few of the minor AI things, and I say minor, but like for example, on LinkedIn, you get to write your post. I've plugged my post in there just to see what it comes off with. It's not too bad. I mean, it's really, I mean, can from a content perspective, I have to add some context to it. So contextually, it has to sound like Cheryl. But I don't think if you're a terrible writer, it's really helping you out. I'm not a terrible writer, friend, but it is one of my strengths. But having said that, I think that part's good. Where I do see some of the concern is like, taking some of that information back into its AI brain and then using it, reflexively into other areas too, which I got to assume. Are you seeing some of those conversations in the reg tech space when it comes to AI? I assume yes.
Yeah, so you're essentially saying taking data from clients and plugging it into AI.
Yeah, or yeah, like you just said, we're trying to teach them what the fine line of context, I think, is when you're trying not to make something so, I always say personable versus personal. So trying to
Yeah.
stay personable so that AI can help you versus personal. And sometimes that's a hard space to navigate. I've got to assume at least.
Yeah, it can be, especially when you're trying to curate content that's customized to the person that you're responding to.
Yeah.
So that's why the standardization is key. So even before building any of the solutions that we build, we try to figure out ways that we can standardize steps within the process, because if
Okay.
they're standards, then it makes it easier to reduce the amount of errors that could occur with the workflows or the AI that's developed there. So that's how we've been able to mitigate it. The other thing, and not to get too technical because I sit more on the sales and kind of account management side, but I know there's some things that are coming out in terms of like the AI space that is essentially going to like cut off the AI or like the data from being shared, and you'll have like your own micro environment. What those details are, I'm not entirely sure, but I know that our delivery team is up to date with kind of creating these ecosystems of your data in one location that's not shared out. So for example, if you record a Zoom call or
Yeah.
Teams call, that's on their servers. But I think from an infrastructure standpoint, we might start to see things shift to be more the client owns the environment that it's built off of versus the third
Mm.
party vendor does. But it might be expensive, and what that looks like, I don't really know at this point. I just know I was having a general conversation with one of my tech leads, and he was mentioning that. So that might be kind of where things are headed, but it might be one of those things where it is cost prohibitive in
Yeah.
regards to how they price it, which I don't know at this point.
Yeah. Speaking and then going back to compliance, let's spend a little time in compliance world. I know. But it's necessary. It's necessary. I wish actually there was more compliance in other areas of financial services, which I know probably would shock some people. But compliance in our profession, when you go in and you meet and talk about compliance and being compliant, what are some of the areas where you see advisors making mistakes that they don't even know they're making? Like it's like, oh, I didn't even see that. When you do that consulting work, what does that look like?
Yeah, so the big one for us, like I mentioned, we more focused on like operational efficiency.
Exactly.
So from a compliance standpoint, the biggest one I would say is either open access or not the appropriate security in place. So we're not a managed service provider. We don't do a lot of like the network monitoring, cybersecurity, things that a firm would need in terms of being proactive in regards to
Yeah.
monitoring their network, but we do ensure that all of the solutions that we build align with their compliance regulations. So first and foremost, I would say either not having an MSP, a managed service provider, to be able to manage their network and making sure everything is set accordingly and monitored accordingly month over month. And it might be simple things such as ensuring that people don't click on a link, or being able to send like fake tests from
Yeah.
the internal company to see like who in your firm is more prone to click on a link. Because then you might want to wrap that around more training that the MSP could provide to your firm to know, hey, Cheryl always clicks on a link whenever she gets it. That's an issue
It's
because
not.
it's going to be a breach in our network. So not having the MSP in place,
Yeah.
or either not keeping up with the items that the MSP needs to be doing as well too, because there's a lot of managed service providers out there in the space. So ensuring that you have the right one and that they're doing the right things to make sure your firm is set up and in compliance and protect it. And then the second thing, what we see more like tactically when we're on a project is access. So that's why I was mentioning earlier from a compliance standpoint, just ensuring like you wouldn't want to give everyone access to all of the HR information across your firm because there might be key sensitive pieces of information there. And same goes with depending on how you structure your firm in terms of giving all client files access to everyone across the firm. Maybe marketing doesn't need it, or maybe you're hiring a third party contractor. They should not have access to all of your client sensitive information. So you want to make sure that you have the gates in place to control user roles, user permissions, what they can and can't do, because last thing you want is someone having the ability to delete everything out, and that can cause an issue, or maybe they accidentally do it and maybe are not being malicious. So making sure you're protected on the day-to-day. Hey, the people that need access to certain key pieces of information have it, and the people that don't do not have it. So setting up the right rules for that and permissions ahead of building any system.
Do you provide some of that education resource for those smaller firms?
Yeah, we do. So like
Okay.
even on the document management side of things, that's what our delivery team will work with to make sure that they have the right standards in place, and then also the right user roles and permissions. But like I said, sometimes there is overlap between the services we provide and managed service providers. They provide some of that as well too.
Gotcha. Are you going to any conferences this year?
We are early. We're a little bit, I guess, late to the conference planning. We're hoping to make some this
Okay.
year. We went to a lot the last 2 years, so
I
we're
know
trying
you did. I've been to conferences. You're fun to be at a conference with.
to.
I will say that. I can firsthand say that. You are a lot of fun.
Yeah, you are too. We enjoy
Ah,
it.
we have fun.
Yeah, so we're trying to figure it out, trying to make the being a small business owner, just making the best use of my time and leverage time and the rest of
Yeah.
the team's time to ensure we're making the right marks across the clients that we're working with and expanding our footprint across additional clients that we can help service. So TBD, I guess, is the answer
There you go.
there.
Do you help mediate between so for example, what I mean by that is like there might be a technology department at a broker dealer, or maybe it's a larger RA that does, and then you have an advisor who hires you and says, I still want you to come in and give me operationally the best efficiencies across whatever. Do you help mediate some of those conversations between the tech and the compliance versus the advisor? I don't even know that. I'm asking this for myself, everybody.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I think your question is if they already have an internal IT team, do they
Yeah.
hire us to be able to provide some additional technology support?
Yeah, yeah, and some of the operational efficiencies that you talked about too.
Certainly. Yeah. So we're working with a RRA right now. So typically we work with the RAs. We haven't worked directly with a broker
Okay.
dealer. They usually have large teams in-house that handle their work.
Mm-hmm.
But with the RA specifically, yes, we'll be brought in to help supplement their IT department. And it's more because the IT department is super spread thin across the
Yeah.
firm. So they're trying to be reactive as well as proactive. And so they just only have so much time in the day because they want to make sure the lights are on, which is most importantly the most important thing to focus on, but also they are doing some strategic planning and some proactive things in terms of, hey, we can be better efficient if we
Yeah.
leverage these pieces of technologies. There is, I guess, something to be said for hiring an outside consultant, even for us included,
Yeah.
whenever we hire an outside consultant, it's a different perspective. So to your point, we do help facilitate those conversations from our expertise as it relates to the technology, but also the other thing that we bring is the experience that we see across other firms. So we can kind of shed some light on, I would say, like best practices or common practices that we're seeing firms use as it relates to these key pieces of technologies based off the conversations that we're having with other clients. And then the other thing is just a learning curve. So being up to date with technology, as I mentioned earlier, it's constantly changing. There's a lot that gets added. We do drink the Microsoft Kool-Aid to a certain degree,
He
especially
does.
within Microsoft. We are very well positioned and educated on the solutions that they offer. And the main reason for that is because we believe in the Microsoft ecosystem, and a lot of all the advisors we work with are already using Outlook. So one of the things that we're educated on is how can you better use the Microsoft applications that are out there, because they have so many.
Yeah.
And it's not to say you won't use other softwares, because obviously you can't capture everything. But we use that mainly as the core of how we drive a lot of the operational efficiencies across the firm.
That's really an important point you just said there too. I was thinking about this because we use Outlook as well at Females of Finance, but I don't use all of the services, obviously. But there are services out there. So if I was a brand new RA and I'm coming in, what I just heard you say is if you're going to do something right off the bat to better yourself is to definitely use Outlook. I do have one that I know, I think they used Gmail and it was the office, the
Oh
Gmail
yeah,
business, and I was kind of
Gmail, yeah.
shocked.
Google
Yeah,
Workspaces,
that's it. Excuse
yeah.
me. Google. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was a little shocked because I am more used to seeing the Microsoft family. But what I hear you say is if I'm new to becoming an RIA, is familiarizing myself with some of the Microsoft components of things. And then from there build out software beyond that because it is I'm really sensitive to how many times I see these RAs, especially women coming in and they buy this asset manager and this platform to do that. And then they're, 7 deep in it. And they're like, I don't even know what 90% of this does. And
Yeah.
so I feel like there should be almost like a primer of this one, and this one. You're going to be good to start. And then from there, finesse that. I don't know if you give sort of a 1, 2, 3 punch, but at least you're saying Microsoft for sure.
Typically, yeah, that would be our starting point. And to your point, when you're smaller, there's nothing wrong with getting started with Gmail, but the thing that might cost you in the long run is, like you said, the learning curve of
Yeah.
you would have to migrate over, and then going from Gmail to Microsoft is a shift in terms of how you're utilizing the system day in and day out. So that's something to consider because the larger you are, the more it just makes it makes sense to be on Microsoft because of the ecosystem philosophy that they have.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
You
it
get my
varies.
brain spinning. There's a lot of different ideas I was thinking about for our Building You program, which is our new learning library within our Females of Finance app. But you are part of our new app that rolled out this year, which I'm so excited about. That was a labor of love. I'm just going to tell
Looks
you, right?
awesome. I signed
Thank
in
you.
and everything, so
Me too.
everything is good.
I was curious what your feedback was going to be like. He's going to judge me on this. But no, tech is hard. I'm not going to
Yeah,
lie. It's hard.
yeah,
If it's not your first language, it's not mine.
yeah.
And so the feedback is okay. I get a thumbs up. It looks
Feedback's
pretty good.
great. Yeah,
Oh, look at that.
I'll
See
spend some
that?
more time and let you know if I have any particular points
Please
to touch
do.
on, but everything looked good. I was able to log in. I saw all of the modules on the left-hand side, so that was good.
Love it, love it, love it. So before we wrap up our talk today, a couple of things. Going back to allyship within the FinServ FinTech space, what is something that individuals can be doing more to make certain that we're sort of checking ourselves to, are we looking for professionals that don't necessarily always look like us? I'm really sensitive to allyship, and you've been such a wonderful male ally, but you've also been such a wonderful, contributor when it comes to in the tech space of making certain, like you have a company that's very DEI focused. What are some things I'm a little putting you on a little bit on the spot here, but what are some things that we can be doing better to make certain our allyship is in action?
That's a good question. For me, it comes second nature because I am a minority,
Yeah.
to be quite honest. But I think the biggest thing is just being thoughtful of the fact
Mm.
that you should be bringing people up and with you along the way, and kind of not kind of, but definitely providing any knowledge that you have. Because even just generally, the older that I've gotten, the more that I realize like what I think is simple isn't simple, or the things that I think I know people also know. So I've been trying to go back to the basics of saying, hey, just asking the question like, hey, do you know this person? Hey, have you checked out this community? Hey, do you know this resource? Hey, let me send you some links here. So being able to share as much knowledge as I have, no matter how little I think it is, it could be a huge impact for the person that I'm talking to. And I used to be a little bit more shy because I'm like, oh, this, like, I'm talking to Cheryl, like, simple, like, she knows what Zoom is, she knows what Microsoft Teams is. And that might not necessarily be the case. So being able to ensure that you're just spreading as much knowledge as you possibly can is a big one for me. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with no matter who's in front of you, you should be sharing that information.
That's super powerful, actually, just being thoughtful. One thing that I know I have been guilty of, and I'm trying to be better about, which is, and I think you kind of just said it. A business coach one time said to me, I always expect me to show up in other people. So like the things I
Mm,
know, or the things I do or the way I act, that it's going to show up in other people, and it doesn't. And so I have to be more mindful of, in order for me to be a good ally or to me to be a good leader, or what, realizing what you just said, sharing. Like, hey, do
Yeah.
you know? And it's okay to say, hey, I already know that. I'm like, great, but I
Yep.
feel like if I don't, then somebody says, well, I didn't know that, but you did. I think that's really important. And Linda said, I love that, sharing all knowledge. I think that's really where we need to be at. We just had our first RISE meeting, which is for our Black and Brown professionals in financial services. And there was a common component of being thoughtful, sharing,
Hmm.
trust, building trust. And so I really appreciate your insight on that. Thank you so much. And just thank you for being you. You're really a delightful human being. You've always been so kind and so generous with everything that you do, and funny. And you love to poke fun at me at my Zoom, and you at your teams. And here we are now, still good friends, whether it's
Yes.
even though we joke around about it. I have to ask this question too. If you're gonna walk out on stage, what do you want that song to be? Because I'm a big song person. I love music.
Oh, good song. I'd probably do it might be cliche, but the Pharrell Happy. Cause I'm
Oh,
happy I'm alone. Because
sing
I
the
feel like
chorus. I
it
love it.
has good
Happy by
energy.
Pharrell. I love it.
Yeah,
No,
so
that's a
that
good
might be a
song.
good one to walk onto stage with.
That's actually Daryl, since Daryl, my husband.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's one of his favorite songs. It's on
Is
his playlist.
that?
I'll have to make sure he watches this episode, because he'll be like, yes, he gets it. He says, how can you listen to that song and not be happy at the end? It's impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So this is great. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Typically LinkedIn is good. So if you find me, if you're hearing this episode, you see me on LinkedIn, please send me a LinkedIn request. Make sure you add a note, because I get spammed so much with LinkedIn nowadays. So I'm very particular on who I let into my LinkedIn network. So I always say, like, add a note with your connection request to say,
Yeah.
hey, saw you on the Females in Finance podcast.
Right on. And he is on our new app, our Females of Finance app. So you can also message him there and connect there. We'll make certain we have all of your information on this podcast episode. You're just a delight. Thank you so much. And as information comes up, or you have questions about technology and compliance and operational efficiencies, please have Daleele be your new best friend. I think
Yes.
it's a great connection here. So with that, we'll close out, and thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Cheryl. I appreciate all the work you're doing. I'll continue to be an advidate of you and your
Same.
organization. So
We'll just
thank
be
you.
fanning it all the way. So
Yeah.
take care
Thank
of
you.
yourselves, friends. Bye now.